Welcome back to the Laughing My Age Off podcast. Have you ever felt like you're aging faster than some of your friends, or noticed that someone maybe in their 60s feels younger, sharper, and maybe even has better skin than someone in their 40s? Well, scientists say that you're not just imagining it. Yes, there's research now that shows there's two specific ages in our lifetime where we see major shifts. All right. And we're going to talk about that today. So, some of these major shifts are your metabolism, your gut, your skin, and even how your body handles caffeine and alcohol. All right. Now, these ages are going to creep up on you. If you haven't entered these two phases in your life yet, go get a notebook. All right. Even if you've actually entered these ages, I've actually entered one of these ages and I'm like taking serious notes. But don't worry, this isn't going to be all doom and gloom. We have some really good practices that you can do to help reduce some of these stages of things that really increase and expedite some of that aging process. All right. You are listening to this, you are above average. So let's get right into it.
Embark on a journey to defy time with LMAO, Laughing My Age Off podcast. I'm your host, Erica Kelly, and I started this show because, like you, I'm curious about the secrets to staying youthful as the years go by. Join me as we discover the secrets to slowing down the aging process, exploring expert insights, cutting-edge research, and personal experiences that uncover the art of aging gracefully. It's time to laugh, learn, and embrace a life full of vitality together.
All right. So, in today's episode, we're actually uncovering some really good data. And I'm going to share some of my personal experience because I've actually entered one of these ages. All right. So, as you're listening to this, I want you to just take note, all right, mentally, or if you're driving, obviously you can listen to this later, take some notes on this so you can pay attention because I think we take aging for granted. And if you are listening to this podcast, right, you are someone that is really trying to be above average. You're already above average because you're listening to this, right? But let's really use some of these practices that we're learning together. And I say this together because this really took me back when I learned about this data because I had no idea there's two specific ages where we can really watch for things. And I think that's the big idea here. There are things that we can do to pay extra attention. And maybe you're not getting close to these two ages that we're going to talk about today, but maybe you know somebody, right? Make sure you share this episode with them because I think it's life changing. All right. So I want to first speak to how this study, all right, this study speaks to, it's a study by Stanford, and they uncovered that the body doesn't age gradually. The study takes in a lot of data of how our, depending on the age, right, our body doesn't shift gradually. There's two specific ages, right, that really make it go up in a roller coaster. So if you're thinking of like a diagram, it goes like this, right? You're up at the top of at Great America, you're at the top of the eagle, right? And then you'll see a huge shift. Okay. So this study uncovered that body doesn't age gradually. It experiences dramatic biological shifts at key points in our life. So again, thinking of it as a roller coaster, not a steady downhill slide like we think it does. All right. So before this, I did think, oh, like they say, it's all downhill after 40. Not necessarily. Okay. So what they did is they have data from over 100 people ages 25 to 75, and they tracked something called multi-omics, all right, profiling, which is basically a 360-degree biological health checkup. I think we're traditionally known when we go to our doctors, right, for our physicals, we get blood work done. I actually had my physical done like last month because I was seeing some shifts in my health, nothing too dramatic, but you know your body. So I was like, oh, it's just good to get, a health check and to see, especially with blood work, is a good way to check things. But this is like on a whole nother level. All right. So they're checking many other things. So they are checking gene expression, inflammation, blood proteins, metabolites, lipids, and even the microbiome. So this is, again, a 360 profile of everybody that was in this study. Okay. And so measuring 25 to 75 years old, why this matters? Well, different systems age at different times. Your biological age in one area might be years ahead or behind in another, right? So we don't really carry all these, gene expressions, inflammation. Everything is not going to slide all together typically. Right. So again, if you've never had a blood check, your labs checked recently, that's a good way to do it. If you can get one of these 360 profiles, I have not done one. So that's something else to consider. So we're going to talk about the first age. I know you guys are dying to find out what's the first age and the major shift in this study. Okay. Are you ready for it? Okay. So I'm going to give you the first year where your body shifts in a huge wave, right? Like a Hawaii. When you're in Hawaii, you see those waves. This is one of them. All right. Age 44. All right. Age 44, not 40, not 30, 44. Okay. And I turned 44 this year. So I saw a few things that shifted. They call this the midlife pivot. So I guess we're in our midlife if you're around 44. They notice huge changes in certain systems like your cardiovascular health, your metabolism, and even how your body processes alcohol. Okay. And also caffeine. So there's a sudden shift in those graphs. Symptoms often are shown where there's slower recovery. It's harder to lose fat. Your blood sugar dips, and there's changes in your skin texture. So again, slow recovery, harder to lose fat, your blood sugar dips, and changes in your skin texture. So I repeated those because I want you to do a checklist in your head. Have you felt differently about those four areas? Some practical prevention for those four symptoms that you can pay attention to are many things. Focus on strength training, sleep, super important. And I'm going to talk about some of the things that I've been doing. You're reducing your alcohol, processed fats, and sugar. A lot of these things we should be doing anyway, but you need to spend a little bit more attention on this, okay? Especially if you've been not paying attention to it at all, okay? Gut friendly fiber and fermented foods. I think, I saw a meme the other day on social media where it's like, you're getting older. One of the things was when you plan your hangovers, like, your alcohol is, not going to process as fast. So you got to make sure you have enough time for the next day. So it's not like when you're in your 20s and you just get out of bed for the most part. No. So here are some of the things that I recently did. I did get my blood work done, and, I started to feel some shifts in my energy, you know, some monthly changes to my menstrual cycle. So I was just like, let me just check this stuff out. So far, everything seems normal, but like the shifts in estrogen and stuff like that are definitely there for me. So I pay attention to that. I pay more attention to my sleep. My sleep is like super sacred. And because some of the other broadcasts that we've done on this podcast, right, we talk about sleep and how that is like medicine for your body. That is like the one place naturally you can reset yourself. And I always think about sleep like charging your phone, right? You're charging your phone. I'm charging mine right now. We need to charge ourselves, and we can't do this 20-year-old thing where we can go off of 5 hours of sleep. No, I need at least seven, 7.5, nothing less than 6.5. Or I've even gotten rounded sheets, like it literally plugs into an outlet. They're like silver lined sheets that are supposed to be really good for sleep. I make sure I have a sound machine. And again, I try to stick to the same bedtime every night. All right. So that's one thing. Paying attention to your sleep, reducing sugar. I am definitely reducing more sugar lately, Monday through Friday. If you can come up with a system for yourself, you know, fasting helps with that. Like the prolonged fasting we've done before on this channel, that is one way that helped me reduce sugar cravings. So also making sure I do fast once a quarter because that I believe, if you haven't listened to that podcast episode, I'll link it in the show notes here. But fasting is good for those cells that we don't need in our body, right? So if you can get rid of some of the junk that's in your body, that's one way to prevent that. So fasting once a quarter, reducing sugar, getting your physical blood tests help to just check yourself, right? Getting better sleep, meditating more. I've struggled with this a lot, and I know it's good for us. It's kind of like working out, you know. So those of you who are listening that don't work out a lot, meditating is my working out. Like I know I should do it, and it's a struggle for me. Like I really try to do, you know, if I can do minimum once a week, that is like my goal because sometimes I feel like if I can't do 15 minutes, then I'm just like, I'm not going to do it. But now I'm a little bit more lenient on myself. I find like 5 minute meditation recordings on YouTube. So that's helping me reduce some of that excuse. And on weekends, when I feel like I'm a little bit more relaxed, I have more time, I can sit out on the back porch. I do the 15, 20-minute ones. So that's another tip is like, if you can't get the whole time for something for one of your goals, like working out or doing meditation, find little pockets, right? Like I call them like snacky workouts or snacky meditations. And something is better than nothing. So that's what I've been trying to accept more of, not being so hard on myself. And another thing that I've been doing is drinking more. Okay, we're going to get on this green tea thing. We did have a podcast on this one too, of course. But, you know, I don't know if you're like me, but you kind of go in waves with doing good things for your body and then it just drops off, right? So green tea is one of those, right? So it's always hot in Florida, I feel like. So it dropped off a little bit. So I found a way to chill my green tea. And here's one tip. I think I shared this before, but my green tea, I actually put that with my protein powder and I use a frother. So that way I get my green tea and my protein right out of the way in the morning. So more green tea is good because we all know that I could be stereotypical, but Asians, they look good and they live longer. All right. Some of those centurions are in Japan. So, and you know what? They sip green tea throughout the day. They do. And they have lower obesity rates. So we can go on and on about how great green tea is for you. You know, more protein is another thing that I'm doing to help. You know, since I am 44, protein is super important. It helps with our hormones. You know, if you're experiencing perimenopause, going through menopause, ladies especially, we need to hold on to muscles. So getting a recommended, and always check with your doctor first, but this is what I do, right? And this is what's helping me. I'm getting, for every pound that I weigh, I'm getting a gram of protein. So it's kind of sneaky. I found some tricks. We might do a podcast on that one too, how to get that much protein. It sounds like an enormous amount, right? Especially if you're not used to getting that much protein. So also, of course, weight training. That's something I've never had issues with. Some of these other ones are what I have been adding. So, what are the things are you adding? You know, I'm just asking that question here. Think about it. Maybe there are some things you know you should be doing, maybe you stop doing. Go ahead and just write those down. Reset. There's no, shame in resetting yourself. Okay, are we ready for the second age where your body shifts? Okay, it is the big 60. Yes, 60. So at 60, your immune system regulation, inflammation, and blood sugar management start catching up. This is where risks for neurodegenerative diseases and other inflammatory driven issues like diabetes, stroke, and even dementia. All right, those climb particularly fast when you hit the age of 60. So the study shows that your body literally changes how it regulates carbohydrate metabolism and immune response at this point. So if you've been skating by on donuts, and hamburgers and french fries, this is your signal to really clean up your diet, okay? You don't want to have this be a surprise to you. The role of insulin sensitivity might be the hidden key to aging well. So, one of the strongest predictors of how people fared at these life checkpoints was their insulin response. So, being insulin sensitive keeps your metabolism, inflammation, and energy younger for longer. All right, let's repeat that. Being insulin sensitive keeps your metabolism, inflammation, and energy younger for longer. So, it's really tied to chronic disease risk. So, what can we do? Paying attention, awareness is number one. Time restricted eating is one of the recommended things. So, when you say time restricted, that could just mean stop eating after 6 p.m. at night. I know my dad does that and he looks fantastic. My dad's over 80 years old. So he doesn't eat after, I think, 6 p.m. And I really strive to do that as well. Lower your sugar intake. That is a common thing. Sugar is just no good for us. All right, consistent exercise, right? We need that blood circulation and managing stress. It spikes up the blood sugar too. So if you're over 60, don't stress. Go for a walk, okay? The immune system and the inflammation wave later in life that shows up, you know, this is a huge risk to developing chronic diseases, okay? Symptoms like poor recovery, memory issues, and even joint pain. Those start to really surface. So, what else can you do for this? Well, focus on anti inflammatory foods, sleep, all right? Regular strength training exercises, and of course, managing your carbs and your refined sugars. If you've noticed any immune changes in your body, like getting sick more often, you know, this is a sign that, your body is shifting in life. So add some good anti inflammatory foods to your diet. So, what's the overall goal for this episode? Well, it's really trying to be ahead of this game. You don't have to be a statistic, all right? The big takeaway is really that these checkpoints aren't gradual. They really do hit you in these two stages, okay? So this means that you can plan for them, right? It's kind of like a hurricane instead of a tornado, right? Hurricanes, being in Florida, they tell you way ahead of time. You can, make sure you travel away from the storm if you want to. A tornado happens within minutes and you barely have any time for it, right? That's not you. This is not a tornado. This is a hurricane, right? You have time to prepare. So make your list, all right? And I would love to hear from you guys. So if you want to message me on Instagram, tell me what your biggest takeaways was from this. Okay, so we also have our joke of the day. All right, are we ready? All right, being that it is about Easter here, what are 10 bunnies walking backwards called? Ready? A receding hairline. That's it for today. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.